To get started, we need to install Livewire, and to do so, we can write the composer command composer require livewire/livewire. And once that's installed, we are done. There is nothing else we need to do. We can get straight to work creating Livewire components and putting them within our Laravel application. If you do wish to publish the configuration for Livewire, you can do so with the command php artisan livewire :publish --config. And that will then publish the Livewire configuration files, and within that you can change things such as the backend Livewire address, which handles the logic, and other things just like that. So the first thing you need to learn how to do is create a component within Livewire. You may know that Livewire is component-based, which means each component has two files. It has a blade file and it has a Livewire class. Let's get started by creating a Livewire component and building an example for you. To create a Livewire component, you would use the command php artisan make :livewire, and in this case, we'll call our component counter. Begin your component name with a capital. Our component has one goal: to increment a number each time a button is clicked. Traditionally, using JavaScript, you would 1. Create a variable to track that counter, 2. Create a click event listener, and 3. Inside of that listener, create a method which will handle the click event to increment the variable. Using Livewire, the process is very similar, but instead of tracking the variable within the browser, that logic is handled within our Livewire counter class using PHP variables and functions. Our Livewire click events will send a HTTP request to Livewire, handle our request, and return the updated HTML, which means, beautifully, we don't have to write a single line of JavaScript code. To show you what I mean, we'll begin by heading to our counter blade template. And inside of that blade template, we're just going to post a little bit of boilerplate code. You don't need to worry too much about what's going on here, but you just need to know that the basics of our component are a button and a span where our counter value is going to be a little bit later. Now that we have the basics of our component, we can add it to the default welcome template or welcome blade file that comes with Laravel. So let's head over to our welcome template and include our new Livewire component. To place a Livewire component in your blade file, what you want to do is use the keyword Livewire and then :name. So if your name is main header, that would be main header, just like that. But in this case, our component name is counter, so we're going to name it just like that. Now, if we view this page in the browser, we will see my first Livewire component, which is inside of the welcome blade template. We will also see the contents of our counter component, which is the button to increase the counter and the counter value, which we will add shortly. So right now, our component is useless. There's no interaction, but let's change that. We'll start by going to our counters Livewire class. And inside of our Livewire class, we will add our public property, which will act as our variable, which will be used on the front end. So to do that, we will type public $counter. And we will set that to a value of 0. Now that we have our variable, we can head back to our counter template and we can add the variable to the page just like this, using typical blade syntax to display a variable. If we save this and head to our browser, we can now see that the value is 0, which reflects that we've defined in the counter class. If we change that to 5, that will be updated on the blade template. So we're extracting variables as you would in a controller, but we're doing it in a Livewire template, which you may think, great, okay, I've seen this before. How do we make this interactive? Which is just what I'm going to show you now. To get started with making this interactive, we first need to define our method, which will handle the incrementation of our counter variable. So let's write public function, and we will call this function increment. Inside of this function, we are going to manipulate the value of counter by incrementing it once every time. And then we're going to call the render method, which effectively reloads the view and forces Livewire to refresh the HTML. Now that we have our increment method, let's add this to our counter blade file to add some interactivity to our component. So we'll head into our counter blade file, and we want to add an event listener in Livewire, and that syntax is wire : click equals the name of the method you wish to fire. So in that case, increment. We don't want to add the parentheses to this. Now, if we head back to the web page, which displays our component, we can see that if we click increase counter, it's going to increment with each and every click. So as I mentioned earlier, Livewire handles all logic on the back end. If we take a look at the network tools, we will see that each time an event is triggered, a request is sent to the back end, and Livewire politely returns the updated HTML code for us. So if we head into the update request, we will see the response, which contains a snapshot of the data from our component, a memo, and a checksum, which means that even if the front end is tampered with, Livewire will be aware of that, and it will throw an error to say that our component has been tampered with, which makes it extremely secure. But what we really care about here is it returns the updated HTML with every request. To many people, this feels like a counterintuitive solution, the main point being that a network request is unnecessary for something so simple. However, the benefits of rapidly developing using PHP and consolidating logic into one language is highly beneficial to many teams to help them highly scale and build tools quickly. So just like the front-end frameworks that you're used to using, Livewire can also model a variable within an input element. So we can have reactive variable updates based on the contents of an input field. Inside of our name component, we have the star of the show, which is the input element. We want to model the value of this against the value of a variable in our PHP component class. To do that, we will use the wire model.live attribute, and then we will use the name of the variable we wish to model. So we'll just say name in this case. Now we want to head into the name component, the Livewire class, and define a public variable called name. Now that we have our variable, we can print that in our component blade file. Let's just add this new component to our welcome page. So we'll say Livewire : name. And if we head back to the page, we will see our input box. And if I type Joe, my name immediately appears here. So this should give you an idea that Livewire is an extremely powerful tool for developers to use to consolidate all of their front-end interactions into a singular language using PHP. Hopefully this video has given you a nice introduction to Laravel Livewire and its benefits. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them and I'll do my best to help you. And if you are interested in more Livewire tutorials in the future, keep an eye out here as we'll be posting a complete Livewire course in the near future. Until then, stay safe and have a great day.